What's going on, everybody? It is Wednesday, which means it is Q&A day. Man, you guys sent me some terrific questions this week, and I am super excited to share my take on these. Now, most of them are opinion questions, and that's generally what I'm looking for, is just an opinion, not a right or a wrong answer. But, one of the questions in particular for this particular week is about experience of my own. And so I'm excited to share my answer to that one. Now, again, if you have a question for an episode that you would like to see featured, that you would love to hear my take on, just in the comments below, simply type the question and I will be more than happy to answer it. Be patient with me. Some weeks I get a bunch of questions and some weeks I get fewer questions. This particular week, for example, I had several questions. So again, I try to narrow it down to 5. So if I didn't answer your question, please be sure to just ask it again so I don't forget about it. And again, keep sending those questions. So let's take a look at our first question right now.
What is your favorite pull out of packs?
All right. So this is such a great question because, we've all opened packs. It's fun to open packs. Who doesn't like opening packs of cards? It's fun. It's exciting. You don't know what you're going to get. And it really goes down to the very, very basic roots of card collecting, is getting a pack, getting whatever it is that it comes in, and not knowing who's going to be inside. It's literally like playing a slot machine, and it's a fun thing to do. So, to the question, first thing you need to understand is a little bit about my experience with opening packs. I'm pretty sure that there's nobody who has worse luck in opening packs than me. It's kind of depressing when I think about it, if I'm being totally honest with you. So, I really started getting into cards in 1987. And the card that I wanted, that everybody wanted at the time in 1987, was the 87 Topps Mark McGwire card. So what would happen is every single Friday, my dad would pick us up from school and we would get our allowance for the week. And at the time, our allowance was $1. And we would get our $1, and generally we would ask our dad if we could stop at 7-Eleven on the way home from school, and we would spend our dollar allowance. And, in 1985, 1986, what I did with my dollar is I would buy packs of Garbage Pail Kids. So I would usually buy 4 packs of Garbage Pail Kids. They were $0.25 each. And there we were. I had my packs of cards. And then in 1987, I really started getting into sports cards. And so I was buying packs of 1987 Topps baseball cards with the hope of getting the Mark McGwire card. And week after week, I would go to 7-Eleven with my dollar. I'd buy my 4 packs and I wouldn't get a Mark McGwire. This happened week after week after week after week, and still no McGwire. It got to the point where I was so frustrated with not getting the McGwire Topps card that I literally took money from either my birthday or Christmas, I'm not sure which it was, and I went to KB Toys in the local mall, and I bought a complete set of 87 Topps, because then I knew I would get the Mark McGwire card. So what I did, I literally bought a set of 87 Topps so that I could make sure I got the card. And then when I got it home, they weren't in order. For whatever reason, they're in a different order, or maybe I didn't know the number of the McGwire. So I went home and I literally immediately thumbed through them until I found the McGwire. So I had such little luck with pulling the McGwire, I had to buy a complete set to get it. So then fast forward a couple of years, and 1989, everybody wanted Upper Deck. everybody wanted Upper Deck baseball cards. That was the card. That's all we wanted were Upper Deck cards. And so I remember for Christmas, my dad bought a box of 89 Upper Deck cards, and they were really expensive at the time. Like, they were off the charts expensive. And I remember my dad got a box for my brother and I to split. So he got half the packs and I got half the packs. And you can probably already tell where this is going. And the card everybody wanted was the Ken Griffey Jr. rookie card. And the number 2 card was the Gary Sheffield card. Those were the 2 big cards by far. And we start opening the packs, and my brother gets a Ken Griffey Jr. And I think he got 1 Ken Griffey Jr., if I remember correctly. He might have gotten 2, but I think he got 1. And then he got 2 Gary Sheffields. So my brother gets half the box. He gets 2 Sheffields. He gets the Ken Griffey Jr., and I got absolutely nothing. So, to be honest with you, as much fun as opening packs was, after that experience from 1989, and I already was fairly frustrated from 87, I didn't buy a ton of packs after that. I was the guy who, instead of playing, the slot machine, I was the guy who just kept my money, and it was the same sort of thing with packs. My brother was always buying packs, always buying boxes, and I was buying single cards at shows. And that way I could control getting the cards that I wanted instead of, rolling the dice. So my, knowing that I really only had about 3 years that I opened packs, 87, 88, 89, I don't have a very big window, because literally the Upper Deck experience pretty much made me say, I'm not doing this anymore. I don't want to have packs anymore. It just sets me up for disappointment. So my highlights, this is depressing, but my highlights for packs, I remember after 87 and 88, as junk wax is really cranking up, Costco and Price Club was the other place at the time. Started to have cards literally pallets at Costco and Price Club. And so what my dad started doing is he started going to, because the prices of packs were starting to get up as cards were getting more popular. So what he started doing is he started buying boxes of Topps cards or whatever it was at Price Club. And then I would use my dollar for 4 packs at home, because that way I could still get 4 packs versus, if I went to 7-Eleven at this point now, it was like, I might be able to get 2 or 3 packs for $1. So I remember what my dad had is he had the box up in a cabinet, and it would be Friday, and I'd use my dollar for 4 packs, and I'd get my 4 packs. And I remember, just going through it. And this point now, it's in 1988. And I remember there was 4 packs left in the box one week. And I said, yeah, I want to get the packs, Dad. So I used my dollar on my packs. I got the packs. First 3 packs, I got absolutely nothing. And the very last pack in the box, I pulled a 1988 Topps Don Mattingly. And at the time, Don Mattingly, we grew up Yankee fans. Don Mattingly's, the guy. And I pulled this 88 Topps Don Mattingly, which right now might be worth 10 cents. But at the time, that was a big pull. And I remember just being pumped that I made the decision to use my dollar on the packs because I got the Don Mattingly card. So that was a big pull. And then another card that I got along the way growing up, I remember opening some 1988 Fleer packs. And Fleer back then was a step above Topps. It was like Fleer was a little bit of a premium. The 88 Fleer was a little bit of a premium over the 88 Topps. I don't really remember why I felt that way, or if that was universal or that was just me. And I remember I went to the card shop and I got 1 pack of 88 Fleer. And I remember I didn't open it there. I took it home and I brought it home And I had the pack at home, and I said, okay, I'm going to go ahead and open the pack. And I had a friend over. And so my friend's watching as I'm opening the pack. And I opened a 1988 Fleer Greg Jeffries. And I literally thought that I had hit the lottery because I got the 88 Fleer Greg Jeffries card. And I was just like, oh man, this was a huge chase card in that set. And it was like such a great feeling to pull that card. And I had always had bad luck, but now I pulled this Greg Jeffries. And then not long after, I had my 89 Upper Deck experience. So I'm sure my dad is probably going to watch this video. I'm sure my dad is going to probably be sad to hear that the 89 Upper Deck nightmare, as my brother's pulling all the great cards and I'm getting nothing, is, pretty much turned me off to packs forever. But it pretty much turned me off to packs forever. I don't really remember buying many packs after that. And even to this day, very rarely I will buy a couple of packs of cards just for fun and nostalgia purposes. But I literally never hit anything. So my best pulls ever, as depressing as that sounds, is an 88 Topps Don Mattingly and an 88 Fleer Greg Jeffries. And I've never had an 89 Upper Deck Ken Griffey Jr. I've wanted one since 1989, but I still have not had that card. So there's your answer.
I'm 39 years old and I collect vintage baseball cards. I love the hobby. Recently I was sitting around thinking, why do I keep collecting these cards? I can't take them with me and I don't want a bunch of stuff for my family to get rid of. Have you ever thought about that?
All right. This is a question that we all have thought about. We have all thought about this exact question. And it's, why, I don't want to leave a burden to my family members. I don't want to, have all this stuff and then they're going to have to deal with this headache down the road. And man, why am I even doing this? Now, let me first start by saying there are two types of people in this world. There are the type of people who are worried about today and focused on enjoying today. And then there are people who are focused on enjoying the future. The problem with the people who are focused on the future is sometimes we forget to enjoy today. I started my retirement account when I was 23 years old. I was 23 years old and I set up a retirement account, and I have been continually investing into that for the last, over 20 years. And there are other people who, they earn a sick day, they earn a PTO day, and they're like immediately use it. It's like they earn and burn, they call it. I earned another day because so much time has elapsed. I have a day off. I'm taking it Friday. And then there are the people of us that squirrel them away, and we have tons and tons and tons of sick days saved up. We tend to be wired one way or the other. And generally, a lot of us find a partner who's the opposite of us, right? Now, by being a 39-year-old who is concerned about leaving your card collection to your family members when you pass away, you're worried way too much about the future. Right now, your focus at 39 years old should be enjoy yourself. And listen, we all have money that we save, that we use on necessities, and that we use to enjoy ourselves, right? That's part of our money is meant to enjoy. And we're going to enjoy it on something. Now, some people have season tickets to games. Some people go on lots of vacations. Some people have a really nice car, really nice clothes. Some people go golfing all the time. Some people collect things. There's not a right answer or a wrong answer on how we spend our money. It's our money, and how we choose to enjoy it is fine. But I don't think somebody should say, I'm not going to collect cards because that would leave a burden to a family member. Instead, I'm going to use my money to go on vacations because then I won't be leaving a burden. You should be spending your money and using that portion of your budget to buy cards if that's what brings you joy. If the hunt of finding a card, of trying to move your way up to acquire the card that you want is what makes you happy. If that hunt and that effort and digging and trying to make moves to trade up or scale up to a card is the thing that brings you enjoyment, you shouldn't not do that simply because it might leave behind you, it might leave you with your family members with something to do. And quite frankly, how much, okay, say you have a huge, enormous collection. Like, so what? Like, people have stuff, and having stuff is part of living. And when you pass on, somebody's going to have some stuff to deal with. And they can, go through it, and try to liquidate it and maximize it, or they might just get rid of a lot of it and not get the maximum out of it. But my number one takeaway from this question is enjoy what you enjoy and make sure that you're having fun with it and not being so worried about leaving a little bit of a headache to a family member 40 or 50 years from now that you're not going to do what you like right now. And if you decide later in life, that was fun, and now I'm ready to liquidate this stuff, then liquidate it then. But in the meantime, don't allow what's going to happen after you're on this planet to prevent you from doing something that's a lot of fun for you. And quite frankly, using your brain in a way to be researching cards and hunting for cards and learning about cards and meeting new people is such a healthier way to be using your money. It's such a healthier hobby than so many hobbies that other people are doing. It is like stimulating your mind, keeping you active, keeping you engaged with other people, having the business sense in your brain and using the math part and the strategic part of your brain. That don't steal that from yourself just because you don't want someone else to have to sell your stuff in 40 or 50 years. Enjoy now. You can think about the future, but also you have to think about enjoying now as well along the way.
What are your thoughts on Type 1 press photos, images, and vintage Sports Illustrated magazines? Type 1 press photos are rare, and finding vintage SI in good condition is tough. Your thoughts?
That's a good question. Now, something that has come up several times, are Type 1 photos. And, I think all of us have different interests going in different directions, and we see things that we're exposed to at shows or online that maybe we hadn't considered in the past. And I think those kind of detours along the way and being exposed to new things is great. You're asking my opinion about these particular things. Now, for me in particularly, at this point in my life, things like programs don't really excite me, but there are other people that get fired up for those. And, same thing with photographs, Type 1 photographs, even Type 2 photographs, whatever it is. If that's something that gets you excited, then you should be going after it. Again, this is all about our interests. If you're not collecting what you like, then we're doing this all wrong. If you like something, there are some people out there that like everything. There are some people out there that collect anything you could possibly think of. And the things that become expensive are the things that have a high demand and a really low supply, right? And everything has some demand and everything has some level of supply. It's just, where do those two things meet? So if investigating and learning about and digging for type 1 photos is something that is really fun for you, collect them. Collect them. If programs are really fun for you and interesting and going through them and reading the articles is fun for you, collect them. Some people like comic books, some people don't. Some people read comic books, some people don't. It's about your interest. For me, I've always thought Sports Illustrateds were cool, but the thing about Sports Illustrateds is I feel like Sports Illustrateds were always thought, oh, this will be valuable someday. People kind of always hung on to them. I remember as a kid, we had a subscription to Sports Illustrated, and I would take them, I would not open them, I would put them into plastic and I would put them up in my closet because I didn't want them to get messed with. I wanted them to be preserved because I immediately thought as they were coming out, this might be valuable someday. And again, my personal thought process is things that were designed where immediately people think this is going to be valuable, those are the things that are actually least likely to be valuable because other people stored them. The other thing about Sports Illustrated is they're really easy to store. There are a lot of people with a lot of boxes stacked with a lot of Sports Illustrateds in them. Now, some of them are very valuable and some of them aren't. And then, some of them have the label on them, like the mailing address, and some of them don't. There is a demand for that stuff. There is a demand. Is the supply large enough that the price will never become super valuable? Well, I think that's where grading comes in. They do grade magazines. And I think Sports Illustrateds are cool. I have quite a few Sports Illustrateds. I have quite a few magazines. I personally like that kind of stuff. But the price of them, unless they're graded in pristine condition, has never really gotten that high. But to summarize, do I like them? I do like photographs. I tend to like photographs more of like photographers. Like I love Ansel Adams. Like I have Ansel Adams books. I love photography. And type 1 photos of baseball players, they're cool, but they're not something that I rate above cards. So for me, if I have money and I can spend it in either place, I'm going to spend it on cards because that's more interesting to me. Cards or autographs and stuff like that. But if for you it's higher, go for that. And my interests change, right? At one point, I've mentioned before, I was collecting ticket stubs. I got heavy into ticket stubs over like a 5 or 10 year stretch, and I had a whole bunch of different ticket stubs. And then, I kind of went through that phase, and I said, I want to do more cards again. So I started collecting less ticket stubs and more cards, whereas for a while I was just doing a little bit of cards and more ticket stubs. So will I get into type 1 photos? Maybe. Will I get into programs and magazines or Sports Illustrated specifically more than I am now? Maybe. I like all of these things, but my route on where I'm going recently hasn't been heavy into type 1 photos, but I'm certainly open to it because I love photography. So if that's what you like, that's what you should collect, because if it's your passion and it's your interest, then follow that. Don't just follow what you think is going to be valuable. Follow what you are interested in, what you are intrigued in, what you love learning about, not what other people are interested in and other people are learning about because you think that's going to be valuable. Don't just collect what you think is going to be valuable. Collect what you like, and then it's really your collection and not just an investment.
What's your opinion on modern cards with vintage players? Do they interest you as part of your collection or a no-go?
This is a great question. Modern cards with vintage players. If you look back over time, there have been a lot of attempts by card manufacturers to use some of the old time guys for, newer cards. There have been not just reprints, but making sets with historically great players. For me personally, what I have seen is it's the playing day cards of players that tend to have the most value. That's not to say that the non-playing day cards aren't valuable, but the playing day cards tend to be the most valuable. Now, I appreciate the including some of the historical greats because it's a way for us to keep them relevant. It's a way to remember them. So I totally get why it's important to keep those players in the mainstream because they helped us get to where we are. I know there was the recent news about the Babe Ruth superfractor card that there was a bounty on that was pulled and then sold for a lot of money. And I understand the appeal of that. I personally don't go through cases at shows and look online and see, oh, look at that. It's a 2023 Prism Joe Namath card and go, oh, I need to have that. But I do collect modern cards of vintage guys that are autographed. So I have quite a few of those. I have like a Hakeem Olajuwon modern card autographed, right? I have a bunch of these. I have Oscar Robertson. I have Ozzie Smith. I have a bunch of guys where it's a modern card of a vintage guy that's been signed. So what's the difference? I don't know. So do I like these? I guess I do. I do like them. I like the autographed ones the most. And the other ones don't really excite me. But that doesn't mean they're not cool, and it doesn't mean that they're not collectible. It just means, for my personal interest at this exact time, I don't see those historically being something that hold and gain a lot of value, right? It's like, are they interesting? Sure, they're interesting. If I open a pack, which I rarely do, and I get an older card, I'll take a little bit of a longer look of it than a modern guy that I don't know. I'll take a look at the, Lou Gehrig new card over the guy I don't know new card because it's Lou Gehrig. But as far as like a collectability to it, yeah, I do. I would like sleeve that card and put it in my collection, but I wouldn't set out to buy it at a show unless it was signed. So I don't know of a time historically that it has had a lot of upside in value to do modern cards of older players, historical players, but that doesn't mean that that's not going to change. Like we just saw with that Babe Ruth card. Yeah, apparently there are people out there that are really into that. That said, I'll continue to say repeatedly, if you're into that and you like them, then collect them. Again, who cares what other people like if it's what you like and that's what you want to collect? So continue to collect what you like. This is just a hobby to be entertaining and be fun for us. And for me, the autographed ones I really like. The non-autographed ones they're okay, but they're not something that I've really searched for or looked to add to my collection.
Baseball's powerfully waning popularity scares me when it comes to long-term investing in vintage baseball. The playoff viewership numbers are terrible. Any thoughts on the effect this trend will have on baseball cards in the coming years?
This is such a great question. It's certainly an opinion question because none of us have like a right answer or a wrong answer. And I know it's something that we all think about. All of us that are vintage card collectors go, man, is anybody going to care about these guys in a few years? Are people only going to care about Tom Brady and Peyton Manning and Derek Jeter? Are those going to be the vintage guys that people care about? And they're not going to care about Cy Young and Ty Cobb and, Honus Wagner? And the answer is nobody knows, right? Nobody knows. And especially because baseball viewership is struggling. There's no doubt about it. It is struggling. The ratings are not what they used to be. I mean, there was a time that baseball was absolutely king in this country. So I don't know how to, put a nice bow around my feelings on this particular question because it's a really tough one. I will say this. It's one of the reasons that I have been high on football cards, vintage football cards for a while, is because I do think football is more mainstream America at this point. And I do think as people continue to scale up and get older, they look at historical figures and want to collect older figures. So one of the reasons that I'm kind of high on football, vintage football especially, mostly, is because of exactly what you're saying, is that America's youth cares way more about football than they do about baseball. I am not saying that vintage baseball is not going to hold value. I'm not saying that at all. But it is something to think about with, when I was growing up, everybody played Little League. Everybody played baseball. And not that many people played, basketball and football and some of the other stuff. It was like everybody played soccer, everybody played baseball, and then some people played football and some people played basketball. And now, in my community, I'll go by the Little League fields and there are not as many kids as there once were. I mean, even as many kids as there were 10 or 20 years ago. So it is something to think about. Now, here's my take. Here's my opinion on vintage guys. I think that when we're talking about someone like Mickey Mantle or Hank Aaron or Willie Mays or Jackie Robinson or Roberto Clemente or Ty Cobb or Cy Young, Lou Gehrig, Babe Ruth, we go on and on and on. Those guys aren't just athletes. Those guys are iconic cultural figures. These are guys that were important to the culture and the fabric of America because baseball was the king of kings and everybody was all about baseball. And these were where the best athletes went. I mean, this was a time where if you were a great athlete, you played baseball. That's where you went. And so it's almost like the same reason Abraham Lincoln will always be, popular, well-known, and current. I think, Babe Ruth and Jackie Robinson and Mickey Mantle and Hank Aaron and Willie Mays will also be relevant and current because they're more than just baseball players. They're cultural icons. They are, whether it's your dad and your grandpa or your grandpa and your great grandpa, they were the heroes of their time. And so, we think about iconic people, and I mentioned Abraham Lincoln, but we could talk about all sorts of iconic, important people, whether they be inventors or discoverers or politicians and leaders. I don't think that's going to go away. I don't think people who live in Chicago aren't going to know about the Cubs. And when you think about the Cubs, I don't think that they're not going to talk about Ernie Banks. I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think that suddenly Ernie Banks is going to be irrelevant because he's more than just a baseball player. Now, if he was just a baseball player, then yeah, but he was a part of pop culture at that time. He was pop culture in Chicago at that time, right? So we're putting things through a lens of living now. And right now, we go, man, baseball's not that popular. The things that are culturally relevant right now are things that a lot of us may not really understand, like, Taylor Swift. But Taylor Swift is like a pop icon. She's like a part of society's mainstream interest, and that is different than it was, 50 years ago. 50 years ago, what was interesting was Hank Aaron's home run totals, right? And so he was an icon who was a part of mainstream America for that period of time. It's like the Beatles. It's like the Beatles. A lot of people, a lot of young kids aren't into the Beatles, but the Beatles still matter because at the time they were it. And so they have an appreciation for the Beatles because they were it at one time. Well, guess what? Mickey Mantle, Babe Ruth, Willie Mays, Jackie Robinson, they were it at one time. They were rock stars of their day. So I think they're going to still be relevant. Even if baseball isn't as popular as it once was, those guys were American icons. That's why they received the Presidential Medal of Freedom from presidents, because they were important figures in our country's history and in our country's social, fabric. That's my take, at least. We'll see what happens. All right. If you have a question for an upcoming episode that you want featured, please, down below, simply type it into the questions and comments area. I look forward to seeing what you all are interested in. Again, these are my takes. This is my opinion. Some of these could be wrong. I think the only question I answered today that wasn't an opinion is, what's my best pull from a pack? And an 88 Topps Don Mattingly and an 88 Fleer Greg Jeffries is kind of sad that those are probably my two best pulls of my life. So send me more questions. I look forward to this a lot. I look forward to your comments below. And I look forward to hearing what you all want to hear about in next week's episode.